Today I will talk about the 5 things I focused on during my first criterium race in 3 years. How to ride a breakaway, how to improve your corner speed, how to let others close gaps instead of you, ride through the pack without wasting your energy, and timing your attack. If you just started road racing or you want to brush up your skills, these tips and focus points will be super helpful for your next race. What's up guys, what's up cycling fanatics? The moment we've all been waiting for. I'm finally back into racing criteriums. And as we're rolling off the start, we'll go through the first lap to see what we are working with today. Now my last criterium, guys, was in March 2020. That's almost 3 years ago. Back then I raced the Tour de Murrieta in California against those Legion of Los Angeles guys. And it was my only race in 2020 because, you know, we all know what happened after that. In the last 2 years I was so busy with work, family, I just couldn't do all these criteriums back to back every weekend. I had to focus on a few events like the Haute Route, some mountain bike races and that stuff. But I'm missing crit racing, guys. I'm missing it so much. I want to get back into it. So this year I'm going to start racing again. Starting with this local practice race here in Veenendaal, that's the Netherlands. It's part of a local competition. It attracts a few riders from nearby clubs. So it's not really like a big deal, but it's perfect because I wanted to get back into it. Just get the feeling of riding in a group and focus on a few important factors that will make or break your race and your race results in a criterium or in any other race. So here we are on the first lap. Right now we're already on the last straightaway. Well, there's only 2 straightaways. As you can see in the left top corner of the screen, there's a map layout. It's out and back with 2 180-degree turns. And these turns were at the bank, so they would allow you to go faster through the corner. That's really, really cool. That was the finish line. So we have the first lap in the books. And this was actually a slight tailwind. And you can see I drew a little arrow which indicates the wind direction. Here we go through the first corner, and then the next straightaway, this long straightaway would be in a slight headwind. So from now it's slightly from the left, if you understand the picture. As you can see, it's wet. We started with a really wet road and a light wind. It was about 10 degrees Celsius. So you see a couple of guys who are riding with short shorts. Others were riding with arm sleeves. I was riding with arm sleeves, a neck scarf, and with leg warmers because I wanted to stay warm. This was really focused on training and just getting back into it. I show the talking topics at the top of the screen. You can also click on the YouTube timeline to go to revisit certain parts of the video or skip through the video topics. First thing we're going to talk about is corner speed. Now, this is a bit of a special lap because you only have 2 180-degree turns and they're banked. So they're not flat, but they're a bit higher on the outside, so you can go through it faster. So it doesn't really represent the corners that you'd normally see. But the lines that I'm going to explain and the way I go through these corners and the skills and the trust that you can practice and develop are applicable to any corner you'll go through. So at the beginning of this race, I wanted to stay in the front of the pack a bit. I wasn't sure about how this is all going to be going through these corners. It's wet. I didn't know the other riders. I preferred to be a bit in the front, go through these corners with only 2, 3, 4 riders around me instead of going through them with the whole pack. A lot of guys were not sure, and the same goes for me. I wasn't sure about the wet roads. How much grip do you actually have on the wet? The only way to find out is to ride when it's wet. So if you are like me and you don't want to ride in the rain and you never ride in the rain, and then the first race you do it's wet, you have no idea what to expect from your bike, from your tires. So this race was perfect for me because I could ride in the rain. I could ride on the wet roads and feel how it is to go through a corner with 30-40 kilometers an hour and to be able to build that trust in your own bike, in your own abilities, in your tires, and to know that you can still go through a corner quite fast. But it's all dependent on the surface. Is it tarmac, bricks, concrete, all of that? Wet, dry. Right now, check out this corner. It's starting to dry up on the outside, but the inside is still wet. You're gonna see the same thing happen to the other corner. And once we get later in the race, you actually see that the lines where the people are riding stay wet because they drag the water into the corner. So you got to choose your line smart when the stuff starts to dry up, because you'll have more grip on a dry road. So a few basic things about cornering. You should always have your outside pedal down, push on your outside pedal, and then push your bike into the corner. This will get you the best balance. Also, the insides of the corner are, I see it more frequently left open than used. You should use the whole road, especially when you are riding solo or in a breakaway. The most corner speed, the most momentum is carried when you take the outside, inside, outside line, just like a Formula 1 car. Now, when you go through a corner with a peloton, it's a little bit different because you have to give a bit space to the guys left and right of you. But if you're by yourself or if you're in a breakaway single file, you should always take the most efficient line. That being said, outside, inside, outside is not always the same for everyone. What I see very often is that riders turn in quite early and then you end up with a sharper bit of the corner at the end. If you turn in late, you hit the apex at like 2/3 of the corner, then you'll get your bike upright sooner, meaning you can get on the gas sooner and you'll have more speed coming out of the turn. Another tip I would have is don't just follow the guy in front of you. If he takes a bad line, don't follow him. Ride your own line. You don't have to draft in that 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds through a corner. If he takes a shitty line, you should definitely pick your own line if that's faster, because in the end it's safer and it's gonna carry more momentum, which is more important. Right now I'm choosing my own line. I'm taking more of the inside, and the guy in front of me opens up a massive gap on the guy in front of him. I think because he brakes very late into the corner and then decelerates to a slower speed than the guy in front of him. And because you can't pedal through the corner, you have to wait till you exit the corner until you can re-accelerate. But by that time, you already have a gap and you're going slower, so you have to accelerate even more. So it's exponential. It's just costing so much energy. So it's better to brake a little early, open up a gap before the corner if you know your corner speed is higher than the guy in front of you, and then make up that distance as you go through the corner with more speed, and then you don't have to accelerate as hard. And doing that like 50, 60, 70 times in a race is just gonna save you that extra little match that you need in the end. So it's just all about carrying momentum and saving energy every single moment. So the next thing I want to talk about is pack dynamics. Now, what do I mean with pack dynamics? It's like a flock of birds, a swarm of bees. It's a dynamic organism that you should learn to read and predict. One of the hardest things of racing. If you want to ride efficient and win a race, you need to be able to read the pack and to be able to predict what's going to happen in the next turn, in the next corner, when there's a crosswind, where people are moving up and where people are falling back through the pack. And if you see that happening during a race, you need to use it and you need to take advantage of it. Did you notice how I just overtook like 50 riders on that single straightaway? Coming out of the previous corner, I was in the back of the pack. Approaching this last corner, I was almost in the front. If you didn't see it, go have a look again. Right now, it's single file. It's going pretty fast. We're going into the wind. This would not be the place to try to overtake, because I would have to stick my head into the wind and just push harder than all the other guys, spending a whole lot of extra energy when I just overtook 50 riders without a whole lot of energy because the speed was lower. I could almost just coast past them. So it's very important to pick your moments when to overtake. And the more you race, the easier it gets. You'll get to read the peloton way better. First day racing, you're going to be making all these mistakes, and then as you go, you're going to try out a few more things, and you're going to get better and better at it. So try to watch very good riders. If you know there's experienced riders, just sit in their wheel for a couple laps, see how they do it, and then just try to understand what they're doing, and that's how you can learn. Anyway, this guy is attacking, and we're going fast again. And I already know what's gonna happen in this corner. It's not good. This guy had a little bit too much trust in his tires, flies into the corner and skids out with the front wheel. The guy behind him unfortunately goes over the bike, and he crashes as well. So they stopped the race for this, let the first 8 guys do what they do, and give him the opportunity to help out those riders, and then we restarted. So it's a restart. We only 14k in the race. The whole race was gonna be about 63 kilometers. So we still have a little bit of time to go. Everybody was riding a little bit more careful after this crash, at least for the first couple laps. So we went a little slower. The whole pack stayed together a little bit more, and I figured, okay, I've been in the front a bit, now I want to be in the back also a little bit. I can show you a little bit more of the pack dynamics, and also we're going to talk about closing gaps. What do I mean with closing gaps? Well, if someone attacks, there's a gap, right? Are you going to close this gap, or is somebody else going to close the gap? Do you have a teammate who's going to close the gap for you? There's so many options. I know one thing for sure, because I found out on my very first race ever. If you think that every attack is your wheel and you need to close all the gaps to win a race or to stay with the race, you're going to burn yourself out very quick, and you're definitely not going to win. You're probably gonna drop really quick because you're just burning all of your matches straight away. So you gotta ride smart. Usually the smartest rider will win, not the strongest. So I will try to explain what to think about when you should close a gap or when you should not close a gap, and when you should let somebody else close a gap. Now, closing a gap or not will highly be dependent on the situation, and whether you're riding in a team or if you're solo, what's your job in the team if you're riding a team, and what your goal is for the race. In this case, let's assume that 1, I am trying to conserve my energy and not waste it by attacking all of the time and closing every single gap. 2, I'm alone and I have no teammates. And 3, I would eventually want to be in a breakaway that sticks. So here we're approaching the first corner again. As you can see, we're with a lot more riders, so I'm not going outside, inside, outside line. I'm just holding sort of my outside line through the whole corner, because otherwise you can't go through a corner with all these riders at the same time. And then I just try to hide. The wind's coming from the left, so I'm actually at a pretty good position. Speed is going up, you know. This is a good spot just to be for a couple laps, just to stay in the same spot. There's not really anything happening right now. There's just high speed, but there's no attacks. There's no flow in the peloton, in the dynamics of the pack. So you just keep the same spot, and then you try to find that opportunity to move back forward. If you're not moving forward, you're moving back, because other riders will always try to move forward the whole time. So that's a general thing to keep in mind. Always try to find a way to move forward again. So here we go on the back straightaway. I was like, okay, let's try to find a way to move up a bit. And I go on the left side, and as soon as there's a little gap, I just move up 2, 3, 4 riders. And that's with absolutely zero extra energy. Like, I was just pretty much holding my legs still. And the other riders are probably braking because the corner is coming. So this is a very easy way to make use of the pack dynamics and the way people brake in front of corners to move up. Usually when you're on the inside, it's easy to move up because you're the one sort of determining the line. When you're on the outside and the guy on the inside pushes you to the outside, eventually the road's gonna stop. So here I am pushing towards the front. This is definitely like not hiding for the wind. I'm putting my head into the wind, just trying to see what happens if I just push a bit harder. So I wasn't all the time trying to hide. I was trying to play around with the field, try to see what happens when I go to the front and ride a bit harder. I'm moving from front to back. These is all things that I was sort of practicing or trying to get comfortable with, you know, trying to get comfortable with riding in a group and seeing those opportunities to get to the front and then fall back again. Going to speed it up a little bit so you can see a bit more how stuff, you know, develops. Right here, I'm in the first like 10 riders. It takes a while until we get a little bit of organization, but we start to rotate with a few guys. One guy attacks and then, you know, the pack just sort of chases him. And I don't respond, I just stay in the pack, and then we have about 10 riders who start rotating. So first guy comes off the front, I let him in right now, and then the other guys take a long pull, next corner, and then the guy from the front goes to the back again. So you start seeing this sort of, it's almost an echelon where some guys take a pull, then they go to the back, another guy takes a pull, then they go to the back. Now in the front, I take a pull, I come to the back, and this just continues. So it may look like we're in some kind of breakaway, but we're not. The whole field is just dragging behind us, and I'm staying in the first 10 riders, which is in general a very smart idea if there's a circuit with very sharp corners, because there will be way less of this acceleration and braking effect in the front, because you can go much faster through the corners when you're with a single line, single file group. And usually behind that single file, there will be a bit of a pack, like a few riders riding next to each other, and they have to, you know, brake to a lower speed to go through these corners. So sometimes when you're tired, you might think it's best to be in the back of the pack because you can draft, but it may actually be more efficient and less tiring to be in the front of the pack and to do a pull, but just do a very short pull and then get back into the line in the first like 5 to 10 riders, so you stay in front and you don't have to brake and accelerate all the time. Here you see a guy in red. He comes to the front and then he starts attacking from the front, which in general is not the best idea because everyone can see you accelerating and the guy behind you is just going to stay in your wheel, and you don't really have the momentum and the surprise to sort of get a gap on the rest. Watch that corner speed again. If you want to rewind that, have a good look. So if you want to attack, if you want to get a gap on a group, always do it from a couple wheels back with more speed, like him. He was doing exactly what I just said. So he comes from the back, he gets a lot of speed, and then he just flies past the group. And it's such a big effort to get in his wheel or to go after him that a lot of people already just give up when they see it. So eventually the pack will start accelerating and we're going to chase him down. But if you want to get a gap straight away, then it's always, you have to commit. You have to go hard in the beginning. So now that we are talking about this gap, who is going to close it down? His teammate with the blue and orange spots is right here on the left in front of me. He's not going to close his gap because his teammate is up the road. But there's a few other teams riding in this race. We got the blue team, we got the red team. So one of them should probably close this gap. Not me, because I'm a solo rider. Why would I gonna chase down this other dude? So I'm just gonna wait for other guys to start chasing him down. And as you can see, there's quite a big gap in front of me, but there's so many other dudes that are filling it up. And they just all slide in this gap and it just fills up by itself. And all I have to do is just ride with more speed through this corner and I'm already on their wheel. In general, this works very well in the beginning of the race. At some point, it's not going to happen anymore. Then not everyone is going to be so eager to close those gaps. So eventually, if you attack hard enough, no one's going to follow. And then you either have the winning move, or there's only going to be 1 or 2 riders who can follow, and then you can form a breakaway, which we're going to see at the later stage of this race. Right now, I just want to talk a bit more about closing gaps, because what I made clear is that not every gap is yours to close. So if there's other teams, always try to have a look who is in the attack or the breakaway and who's not. Which teams are represented in the breakaway. Let's say there's 5 teams and there's only 2 riders of those 5 teams who are gone, and you are by yourself or you're with team number 6, whatever. Wait for the other 3 teams to respond and to close this gap, because they will want to close this gap because they want to win a race, right? If there's 3 or 4 teams away and there's only 5 big teams represented, then it's going to be dangerous and you need to do something if you're not in the break. So either you can attack very hard and, you know, jump towards the break without taking anyone with you, or you're going to sit in the back and bet for a field sprint, which in the Netherlands usually doesn't happen because these criteriums, not this one, but usually the criteriums are on very small, tight, closed in circuits with a lot of fast, sharp corners. And then a breakaway with 5, 6, 7 strong riders is always going to be a lot faster than a whole peloton. So once they get away, they, like 80% of the times, they will stay away. So it's actually very important to get into that winning move. And sometimes it actually happens in the beginning of the race. So you never know. But the more you do it, and I have to learn a lot about racing still, but the more you do it, the more you know your competition, the better you will have an idea of which move is going to be sticking or not. Now, I've talked about when you can overtake the pack or not, and on previous laps we would see this straightaway be in a single file up into the wind going very, very fast. But now we're in sort of a lull. It's going easy. You know, the pack is wide across the entire road. So this would be an opportunity to get to the front and maybe even attack. But on the other side, when you're in the back, it's very difficult to go around because there's no road to ride. So what you can do is eat or drink, as you've seen me do right now. Now, on these short races, it's not the most important thing to get a whole lot of food in while you're riding, because it's only an hour or an hour and a half. So I just made a quick guesstimation of my required carbohydrates. I did it in the Eat My Ride app. It came with 40 grams an hour, so that's 60 grams in total. So I took 1 Martin 160 and 1 gel, and that was enough for the race. You can probably do with just water, but then you would sort of get the risk that you're going to be a bit low on energy at the end of the race. On longer races, I always eat a lot more, but this app is just really easy to sort of confirm what you think you need. So when it goes slow, get your food in, get your drink in, take another sip. I would not recommend eating like solid food during these races because you're just not going to digest it anyway. So think about liquid nutrition in your bottles or a gel, which you can take just before the race. And of course the liquid, the water can go along the entire race. So just overtaking a whole lot of riders right there in front of that corner because they're going slow, and it's very easy to go and overtake them. And that's when you do it. That's when you overtake the riders, not when it's going like this into the wind. By the way, the dude I'm riding behind right now is like a tree log, man. He's so tall. So that's probably the best guy to get behind. If there is a breakaway, always try to be behind the biggest guy of the breakaway, because you'll get the best position and the least amount of resistance and the best drag. So another guy is attacking. It's gonna start to pick up with attacks. We're gonna get close to a few other categories finishing here, so it's gonna get more interesting. So as we're over halfway of this race, I want to start attacking a bit more. And here you can see a bit of a lull. You can see the guys are holding their legs still. It's not going as fast. We're in a tailwind, so I figured, okay, let's go. I attack and I do it from the back, so I get more speed. So at least I have more momentum to overtake these guys. And you can't see it, but there's plenty of guys in my wheel right now. But, you know, it's also a training race for me. I really wanted to make it a bit harder for myself in the second half of this race. So I was going to attack over and over again to see if something would stick. Usually not the best strategy, but in this case it was a very good strategy because it was working for me on one of my process goals, which is, you know, practicing to get into a breakaway and to be riding a breakaway. Talking about process goals, guys, I've posted a video about setting goals and the difference between a performance goal and a process goal, how you set goals, why you set goals, and why it's very important, you know, to be setting goals. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out, because I really think it's a good video to watch and to stay motivated throughout your season. So the guys that are following me, they overtake me, but they don't really pull through. So it's another lull, and then there's another guy who attacks. Now this guy has a green number on his back, so he's actually from a lower category. So I'm not racing him, but they have 3 laps to go. That's what the lady with the megaphone just told us on the finishing line. I don't care if he's in a different class right now. I just want to get the speed up and make it harder for everyone. So I was following him, and then when I follow him, you can see these guys with the white numbers, I am racing them, they instantly go with me. So this is what I want. I want guys to be riding faster and harder at the front, and then as soon as these guys are starting to get tired, that's when you can make a difference. Very nicely rotating. I know all of these guys have been racing with them in the same club a couple of years ago. We used to race these big national races in the same team, so it's actually fun to be racing against them right now. And here you can see a couple other guys from another team coming up, and you know, the guys that are faster, they will start to make their way to the front in the second half of the race, because the less strong riders will not be able to keep up that pace. 2 laps to go for the category below me. That's the green numbers. So you'll see them come to the front. There's a few strong guys, elite and amateurs, which is my class. I'm riding amateurs this year, which is just below the elite level. And I think for my USA viewers, elite is going to be similar to the Pro 1 category, and then amateurs, which is the name in the Netherlands, is going to be similar to Cat 1, 2, and then I think the sports class is more like a Cat 3. So they guys with the green numbers are making their way to the front, because we're all riding together. It's basically a field sprint for them, and the last 2 laps are always going to be fast when it's a field sprint. So they're making their way up, and we let them do their race. You don't really want to interfere too much, because it's just both not safe, and we just let them finish their own finish. But I do have in my mind, like, okay, they're gonna be finishing very, very fast, so this is a great opportunity to actually attack, right, just after their finish. So I want to be close to their group. Once they finish, I'm gonna pick up the pace straight away and see who comes with me, and then try to get away from the rest of the group. So this is the last corner for the sport class. The guys are finishing their race right now after 52 kilometers. So you'll see them sprinting towards the line, speed is going up, and I'm just staying in that draft for a bit, not like pushing all out, but just trying to stay with them so the speed goes up. And then I knew that this was going to be a good moment sort of to keep it up and to see who's coming or not. And if no one would be coming, I could attack or see if I could get a few guys to come with me. The guy in front of me thinks the same. There's a few guys in my wheel, so I think everybody knows how it's going usually. And yeah, we get up some good speed right here. A few guys are moving towards the front. We start rotating. But what you'll see now is that the group is still way too big. If you want to get a breakaway on a course like this or any other course, it's usually good for like 4 or 5 riders, maybe 3, maybe 6. But if it's too big, then there's going to be sort of riders that are going to sandbag the group. If it's too small, you're not strong enough together to get away from the peloton. So you need to get that ideal amount of riders. I'm still continuing to push hard, even though I'm doing long pulls at the front, for the reason I already told you guys. I wanted this race to be a bit hard through the second half, And at some point I did see that the guys behind me were starting to form more of a single file line. The group was stretching up, so I knew that at some point, you know, there was going to be a break somewhere. Here we go, another attack. The red team is going, and there's actually a guy in front of us of the same team, so he's not following. Obviously the guys behind him aren't responding. I don't know why. And then I see behind me this guy in green. He's going after him, so this is my ticket to close the gap. Like I said, closing gaps. Be smart about which gap you're gonna close or not. If there's only one guy going out there, there's so many other riders that potentially are gonna chase him down. So be smart, don't chase every single attack. So this guy closes the gap really quick and I can stay in his draft. Perfect. And we keep it up, we start rotating, and this is actually the move that's gonna stick. Took a long pull. We've got the green guy again, one blue, then one of these blue and orange guys, he decided to jump after me as well, and we've got my red friend who initiated this attack, and that's it. Five of us are gone, and you can see after the corner right there is the rest of the group. So we actually have a good gap. I yell at them, go, 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 keep it up, because we have a gap. And that's when we just start pulling hard and quickly rotate, so everybody takes a short pull, and that's how you make up the most distance from a peloton. Approaching the corner here, you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, including myself, and then red, blue and orange blue, they all have teammates in the breakaway. So this is actually a very good chance that it's gonna stick, and we work together very nicely. We rotate quickly. All these guys know how to rotate, so that is good. You can expect that from racers, but sometimes you don't know what you're riding with. So this is it. I'm in the breakaway. So now we're gonna talk about how to ride a breakaway. Well, what I'm doing now is I stay on the outside, I flick my arm so everybody can overtake me and I can join in the back of the group. But I didn't. Why? Well, there was one guy who let a gap open and he called my name. He's like, dude, can you jump in? In a breakaway, you need to be flexible. Normally, when you take a pull from the front, you go all the way to the back and you rejoin the last wheel. But if there's a big gap somewhere because of whatever reason, it's always good to just go straight into that gap to keep it going, to keep the flow up. This will work better than to leave that gap open and just go all the way to the back anyway, because you're gonna sort of get out of rotation. The organization is not gonna be as good. So sometimes you sort of have to fill in a little bit for somebody else. But if it happens too many times with the same guy, you kind of know that he's either tired or you can't keep up with this pace or whatever. So that's like a little hint that some guys are slacking. But right now we were working together pretty good. It's 2 laps later and we've dropped a guy. So the orange and blue speckles is gone. I think he wasn't able to keep up the pace. I don't know, maybe he had a flat, but it's only 4 of us now. So we had to sort of find a good way of rotating. We ended up eventually after a few laps to just split up the whole lap in 4, and everyone would take a quarter of a lap of a pull. This worked very, very nice. Me and the guy in front of me, the red guy, he's riding elite category. I think we were the stronger 2 of the group, which was not completely clear in the beginning, but it would get clear closer to the end. Coming through that corner, so the wind is coming slightly from the left. So as I go out of the corner, I move to the left side of the road and I flick my arm so the guys will overtake me on the right. This way I'm always sheltering some of that crosswind for the rest, and then I rejoin behind them. Now the crosswind isn't very strong, so we're almost riding like in a straight line, but it was very, very slight from the left. So always try to think about the direction of the wind when you rotate either left or right, and then keep going the same way. Otherwise it's just going to be one big mess. About 10 kilometers to go, I actually started to think about maybe attacking. I made a lap right there to know how long a lap on my head unit, to know how long one lap was, how long in time and what power I was riding. So I figured maybe I can attack like 2 laps to go, and then I would have to go full gas for 5 or 6 minutes for so much power. I was thinking about options, what I've mentioned before. How am I gonna finish this race? I wasn't sure yet. I was gonna leave it either to a long sprint, a short sprint, or an attack, a couple laps to go. But I was just gonna sort of wait and see. So far, this breakaway was working, and I was enjoying the rotation and the pace. So I was happy with the way it was going right now. That's 2 laps to go. Anytime you get in a breakaway and it turns out to be the winning move or the move of the day, you should be thinking about the finish. These guys are your allies when it comes to breaking away from the field, but they are your enemies when it comes to finishing. And there are multiple ways to win a race from a breakaway, but there's also many ways to screw it up. In this case, I was aware that the guy in red and myself were probably the strongest of us 4, so I had to keep an eye on him. I considered 2 options: hang in the back for the last lap and then respond to an attack, get out of the wheels at the last minute sprint for the line, or initiate a long attack myself to get a gap and then just drag it out to the finish. And if it would come down to a sprint finish, I thought about what position I wanted to be in through the last turn and how far from the line I would have to go and, start my sprint or go full gas. Asking yourself these questions will help you come up with multiple scenarios, so when the opportunity presents itself, you can react instantly and you know what you're doing. Right now we're in the last lap towards the finish, and I'm gonna talk about the last point: attack. I think there's 2 ways to attack from a position like this. It's either one, by being way stronger than the rest and they just can't follow, or you're gonna have to time it right. You're gonna find that moment. You're gonna get them by surprise. So right now, we're focused on that last little bit, that moment where I could attack and get the element of surprise. Now watch the guy in red. He goes to the front, he gives a nice pull, and then he flicks his arm. It's my turn, but what does he do? He grabs his water bottle. I'm pausing this moment for a second here. I've got 100 meters towards the last corner, then I've got 300 meters to the line. The strongest guy is right in front of me and he's grabbing his water bottle. This is the moment I was talking about. This is the element of surprise. I don't have to think about it. As soon as I see this, I just go. I give it a good punch, not full gas, because obviously the corner is coming up and I need a little bit for the way back, but I'm doing enough to get a gap. Now corner speed comes in handy, as I want to take as much momentum as I can through that last straightaway, and I push it hard out of that last turn for a very, very long way to the line. I look back and I see them chasing. The guy in red, he is coming strong. Although my legs feel fine, my sprint is certainly not as powerful anymore as it used to be a few years ago. Finish is closing up. I see the guy right behind me. Nevertheless, I make it to the line in the first position. Now, guys, winning this race was never a goal. This race, this practice race, was all about the process goals. If you want to know more about how to set your process goals and your outcome goals, click up the video on the screen right now. Next week, I'm racing again, so stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about what you want me to talk about in my next race. See ya!